Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. And of course, Mr. Tremblay, aka the Wendigo Guy. You both have found your way once again into the darkness of the Fox Den. Yes, as the Midnight Society once again awakens me from my slumber as we dive in to some very interesting Dogman topics. Well, I do appreciate you both allowing me to feed and replenish lost nutrients. Yes, now that I am feeling fully revamped, recharged, and the shackles have been released, it is once again time for the Wendigo Guy, Robert Prevo, and of course, LordeStarfox to take a walk into the madness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf. And everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night. Yes, once again, it is midnight lycanthropy time here on LordeStarfox Radio. The Wendigo Guy and also Robert Prevo have already somehow snuck past my guards and are sitting around the late night fire as we set up the timber and burn it into the early hours of the morning. This is officially the stomping ground of the Midnight Society. Mr. Prevo, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing awesome. Yeah, we paid off the guards pretty easy. It was, a couple of sticks of beef jerky, and we were able to get by and get in here by the fire. So, yeah, that was pretty easy. How's everybody else doing?
Excellent. I must go have a talk with both of them after, eh? Funny stuff. Love it. Mr. Tremblay, my guy, how have you been?
I'm doing fantastic, but I'm a little mad that Robert stole my joke. Great minds think alike, brother. Well played. Well
Amen. Amen, brother. Amen.
That is so funny.
Well, I'm doing great, though. I mean, we're getting really hot weather in Arizona already. Like I was telling Kenny, it hit 101 already just the other day. And it's like, oh, this is going to be a long, cruel summer.
That's all right. At least you don't have, tornadoes and everything else ripping through the countryside,
This is true. This is
like
true.
we do in Arkansas. I'll send a Wendigo over there.
Please do. No. I'll get a photo for my book and be like, there you go. That's all it's going to be in the book. Just a big photo of the Wendigo. It's real. There you go. Right there. Yep. Done. The Wendigo would hate it. He'd show up and be like, for real, Robert, you in trouble?
Yep. Gonna have a talk come winter. Yeah.
That's so funny. Face hurts here. Every time I think and hear Cruel Summer, all I can think about, because I'm such a nerd, is Cruel Intentions with Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Oh my god, I haven't seen that movie in years.
Well, like Tremblay says, I have the apparent atmosphere and environment of a reptilian, because right now it's 75 degrees in my room, and it's pretty cool, in my opinion.
Greenhouse effect over there. Good night.
Ugh.
Why you gotta be like that? You would think, yeah, I mean, I can tolerate the cold, obviously, because being born in New England, but still in my habitat, yes, it's good to keep it a little bit warm for sure.
He even refers to it as a habitat. He is a reptile.
Uh-oh. You're in trouble now,
Exactly.
Kenny.
Yeah. You
You're coming
reptilian,
out,
you.
good sir.
That is so freaking funny, right? Man, so have you both been diving into anything out of the ordinary lately? We know the Wendigo Guy, as of last time, has been working on a book. Yet, have you been looking into anything Dogman related? And also, same thing with Mr. Prevo. You did send me a nice little lineup of things you've been working on, but same goes for you.
Yeah, actually, I've been getting a lot of questions pertaining to Dogman about the dire wolf thing that's going on right now. It seems that a lot of people are convinced that dire wolves and Dogman are hand in hand, and I'm going, no, they're not though, because no, they're not the same. I know Robert's gonna have a lot to say about that, but I got a lot to say about the dire wolf situation as well.
Yeah, those two are nowhere near the same thing. You're talking about a completely different everything. So yeah, no. And yeah, well, I know where Ryan's going to go on this, that the as his friend has coined, the liar wolf.
I was trying to explain to this person though how the dire wolves themselves, they were kind of shoehorned into cryptozoology. Like the Shunkawarakan and the Wahida, a lot of people say that those are definitely dire wolves, but when you look at the description, it doesn't really fit.
Nope.
So I don't think dire wolves even have a place in cryptozoology, to be honest with you.
No, I don't either. I mean, no more than like Smilodon or anything else. Smilodon might even have more room in there because there have been reported sightings of saber-toothed cats, but those were
Right.
primarily in South America, and there may be other things that happen with those. So, no, not really.
So let me drop this question to you though, Robert. Would it actually be cryptozoology, or would we be studying a Lazarus species? I mean, Lazarus species and cryptids are two different things, because we already know what these species are when it comes to the Lazarus species. We have the name, we've identified them, we have a genus they go into, a classification, whereas cryptids, we don't yet have that. So, do they really fit together? I don't think so.
Well, we have a lot of Lazarus species that you could say are actually do fall into the cryptids. So you look at thylacine, you look at some of the others that, fall into that same category.
Mhm.
So, I mean, cryptozoology really, okay, first and foremost, what people need to understand, cryptozoology is a scientific biological study. And so it's looking at primarily animals that have never been proven to actually exist by science. The second offshoot of that is animals who once existed but are believed to be extinct, but might not be extinct. So there's kind of a little bit of a give and take in there.
Mm-hmm. I think it created a lot of hype and a lot of excitement for really nothing.
Right.
Excellent stuff right there. Love to hear the two scientists breaking it down for people. The thing is, too, a lot of people also don't realize that dire wolves, as we are starting to close up this part of what we're going to dive into, have no relation to wolves really at all. They are actually pretty much jackals.
That's true.
Yes.
And speaking of predators, though, we're going to talk about the Dewayo, yes?
We are here in a second.
And I'm going to let you start off on this one with the Dewayo.
Okay, so the Dewayo, this one is super interesting. I think the audience is going to love it. So it is a werewolf type creature. It's said to be about 6 foot tall, so that's pretty tall. But it's got an adversary. So this thing, according to Maryland legend, has fought the Snallygaster. That's its mortal enemy. So that right there is a really interesting dynamic, because you don't hear of that too often in this cryptid field. You'll hear of Dogman, Bigfoot, but you don't hear of two cryptids that go head to head, like the Snallygaster and the Dewayo. So I'm not sure where that legend began. I don't know if it's because, Dewayo became the popular star of Maryland after the Snallygaster, or if there's some story to it. Maybe Robert can fill in the blanks on that part.
Well, I can give you a little bit of information definitely on the Snallygaster. So the Snallygaster actually, and both of these come from German, that Pennsylvania Dutch group up there. So Snallygaster originally comes from the words schnell, which means quick, and Geist, which is ghost, or spirit. So this was a very fast spirit. So schnell, yeah, Schnellgeist. Had to speak in German for a second there. I think I interrupted two brain cells. So anyway, and I only have three. So
they were rubbing together, huh?
Exactly. There may be a little bit of smoke going on now. So anyway, Schnellgeist. So that transformed into Snallygaster. Now the Snallygaster then evolved into this creature that is part bird, part reptile, almost kind of part octopus. It's got this tongue that has tentacles on it, and it has these big eagle-like wings, and then the talons and everything. And it would come down out of the sky and try to abduct people. And if you're ever up in Pennsylvania Dutch areas, or even around where like Mennonites and some of the other more what am I wanting to say, more like more simplified folk, the people who don't want to do all the weird crap like we do. Anyway, you'll look on a lot of their barns and you'll see these stars. A lot of them are 7-pointed stars or 5-point stars. Now, a lot of people try to say, well, that was supposed to be for good luck and everything. It's actually not. That is a symbol that they put up that is supposed to be protective and supposed to keep the Snallygaster away. Yep. So we kind of adopted it, and you'll see it on houses, especially around Texas and places like that, where they got a star on the house and everything. And we've adopted it as being something rather patriotic. But it was originally set up to be to keep the Snallygaster away.
Yeah, protection ward. Yeah,
exactly. So, and then the Dewayo is this like werewolf type thing, but I don't know that. It's kind of funny because whenever you get into the lore of the Dewayo, it gets a little bit foggy, but it goes back to Germany where they had the Hexenwolf.
Yes.
Now, whenever you talk about Hexen, you're talking about witchcraft. You're talking about somebody who was put under a spell or hexed and turned into a wolf basically against their will, or a werewolf or something like that. So there's that aspect of it. But then the funny part is where it's over here in the US, and this is where the Dogman thing has become so big, and especially up there in Maryland, where we all know that big story that came out from up there with the ranch, with the wolf pack, which became so famous. So yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. Whenever you get into the Dewayo, there's kind of a linkage going on there.
Well, what I find really interesting about it, though, is it goes back to almost the medieval mythology in the way that they viewed werewolves. So to current civilization, current people, werewolves are a thing of evil. We associate them with the Howling, American Werewolf in London. But in medieval tales, though, werewolves were actually viewed as lucky and positive beings. So they would show them riding horses, saving maidens in distress. They'd be fighting along the human knights. So the fact that it faces a Snallygaster, which is seen as an evil entity, it ties back to the medieval mythologies. And I found that super interesting because you don't hear about that very often at all. With Dogman, everybody's like, oh, they're evil. Then the Dewayo, though, it goes back, like I said, and you kind of go, oh, was it really an evil entity? Was it something that was bad, or was it viewed as a good thing?
Yeah, there is a strange duplicity that happens with the werewolf or anything that looks like the werewolf. You've got the one side where it is evil, and it's this cannibalistic human who changes into this wolf, usually by wearing a belt or a pelt or something like that,
right.
And either against their will or through a hex, or because that's what they wanted. They wanted the power to be able to do that. Yep. Or then you've got, like you said, the flip side of it, where you have this almost like Beauty and the Beast. The good is cursed but good. Yeah,
Mhm.
kind of thing. So yeah, there's an odd duplicity that goes on with that story.
Yeah, and there's a lot of details that you hear about with the Dewayo that you kind of go, is that true though? Because there's a story, I forgot the man's name, but he allegedly had a standoff with a Dewayo. Okay, and so I read his story, and this thing ran at him on four legs, and it stood up on two. So he had this werewolf-like thing coming at him, and then just the fight just ended. So I was thinking to myself, what was he, like an MMA fighter? Was he more experienced in karate than Chuck Norris? He just walked away from a fight with a werewolf? What happened there? So there's a lot of loopholes in that story that I don't know, Robert. I have a hard time believing it.
Are you talking about the John Becker story from
Yes.
1965?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I got it right in front of me. If you want me to read it, I can read it for you.
Yes, please do.
All right. In 1965, a man under the alias of John Becker described his encounter with the Dewayo to local papers. He was the first to give a detailed description of the creature. Becker went to investigate his yard after hearing a strange noise. The Dewayo allegedly came towards him, stood on its hind legs, and attacked him. He then fought the creature until it ran into the woods. Becker described it as big as a bear, had long black hair, a bushy tail, and growled like a wolf or dog. After this encounter, more stories followed in local newspapers.
Mhm.
In the summer of 1966, the Dewayo was sighted by a man only referred to as Jim A. on the outskirts of Gamble State Park. He encountered it while heading towards a campsite. When he approached it, it made a horrid scream and backed away from him. He described it as dark brown, shaggy, two-legged animal the size of a deer. It had an odd walk with its legs stuck out to the side and its body making movements appearing almost spider-like.
Hmm.
This sounds very familiar. In the fall of 1976, the Dewayo was sighted by two men who were driving on Route 77 in Frederick County. They saw a large creature run across the road in front of their car. Like the precious two accounts, I think they meant to write previous. Like the previous two accounts, they described it as a large wolf-like creature with dark fur. However, they also said that it had striped barring on the lower half of its body. That
Mhm.
sounds like Howling 2.
It does, yeah.
So yeah, so there's some interesting stuff, and again, this kind of links in with Dogman,
It does.
as So is it possibly kind of anecdotal evidence that Dogman's been around a little bit longer, or is it something else that we're linking as anecdotal evidence?
That's a good question. I mean, I did read too that like there's been no current sightings of the Dewayo, but that's not necessarily true because a lot of Dogman reports come out of Maryland. So are they seeing the Dewayo, but they're just calling it Dogman? Because Dogman's the big thing. It's the big term to use these days. So
Yes.
maybe the Dewayo term was dropped in favor of a more familiar Dogman name. So I think people are still seeing this thing. They're just calling it Dogman instead.
Right. I'm with you on that.
Great stuff right there by both of you for sure. Honestly, now I am so completely lost with just where I sit based off of the whole Dogman topic, meaning I did at a point think I was gearing in the right direction, yet now I feel I'm so far down in the rabbit hole that every time I move around, it's per se like playing Resident Evil the second time through, when the first time, you just are gathering all the information, but then in your second time through, you find all the hidden things. Well, I do know and still believe that we have prehistoric things involved, also modern day animals that we always talk about. Yet I just keep on now getting some really unexplainable, bizarre evidence that points in the direction in a lot of these cases that it's seemingly paranormal. And I know nothing about that. I just know, for example, Lee Hampel, a buddy of mine from like the Beast of Bray Road, he's got a farm right on there. He's sent us tracks before, and they're up in the video where Could these animals have been walking simultaneously in the same exact footprints as each other to conceal their numbers and then split off? Yeah, sure. Yet these tracks literally split off where was it multiple ones of these, or did it all of a sudden just stop and no longer manifest because the tracks just vanish, right? Halfway across this field when there's no trees and things around because we're talking about Prairie Road, a hay farm. It's so bizarre. And then you got Linda referring to the one in her book where it was glowing. You have a very interesting picture that I sent to Robert, taken by a buddy of mine, JJ Messenger, back in 2005, that looks like something potentially manifesting. I don't know anything about this, but I know it does look weird, like a Dogman gargoyle or something. He took it in a graveyard that is notorious for having paranormal type activity. Yet when he took the picture, it was just a cool scenery with the grave and things. But as he went back to look at it, like I had explained to Robert, is when this, I don't even know, entity, I guess, or object, because sure, if it was steam or smoke, JJ would have seen that with eyes, correct? I mean, steam and smoke isn't something that your eyes don't pick up. But then when he goes back and looks at it, there's this, as I said, it almost looks like manifestation, which is, again, sure, your camera could have malfunctioned, but why didn't it on other pictures, and why did it not seemingly have water damage or moisture in there on another image that was taken before? I can't answer any of that. It's super strange and bizarre. Then you got Skinwalker Ranch, where people claim that this thing was smoking a cigar, disappeared. Somebody else shot one, and a huge chunk of its rib disappeared, didn't even react. It's, again, I feel like now I'm back at the starting line here, but I have great entourage and great knowledge of trying to understand this, but I am just as confused as I was before, but I have a better team to deal with it, I guess.
Well, it's good that you're confused, though, Kenny, because that shows that we need to start asking the right questions. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's why we don't have the answers yet, is because we are not asking the right questions. You know, we're saying it's this, we're saying it's that, but we're not really questioning it and putting it the right way. You know, and I know some people have a hard time buying into the paranormal or the supernatural, call it what you will, but we live in a supernatural world. You know, there's things that happen that are supernatural every day, you know, so we do have to look at the supernatural events and say there's something to this. So now we got to start noting what to apply to this, what techniques to apply, what kind of research to apply, because that's the only way we're going to get the answers. So it's a good thing that you went down that rabbit hole. You're going to start to learn now.
Absolutely, absolutely. We see the exact same thing with Sasquatch too. I mean, it's literally, we're starting to see the same thing with Dogman that we've been seeing for years and years with Sasquatch, because you know you're following a trackway, and all of a sudden the trackway ends in the middle of a field, or the trackway starts in the middle of the field. Or we've had where we're on investigations up in Missouri, and in the middle of the night, you're seeing orbs float through the woods where you know that there's Bigfoot activity going on, or flashes that look like somebody's taking pictures of you, and you know that you're deep in the forest and there's nobody else with you.
Yeah.
You know, or that feeling that you're being watched, but you can't pinpoint it. You know, there's all kinds of strange paranormal things that don't add up, that don't make sense. Is there more than one thing that's going on simultaneously? Is there, you know, a flesh and blood Bigfoot? Is there something else that's trying to make us think it's Bigfoot? Is Bigfoot both paranormal and biological? We don't know. None of us know. We've been doing this for we're verging on a little over 100 years, looking, you know, seriously into Bigfoot and now Dogman, and applying the same techniques, and we still don't know anything.
Yep. For every step forward we take 10 steps back.
Yeah.
And that's because closed-minded people, they don't want to look at it in that certain way because it kind of, you know, offends their religion or whatever. But you do have to step around that to answer these questions. If you ever want to solve mysteries, you got to think outside the box. You can't be so stubborn that you anchor yourself in just one thing and say, this is where I'm going to stand. You got to open your eyes, open your mind, and go, okay, People are seeing these things. They're hearing these things, like the metallic bang that people will hear when they're out in the middle of the woods, or the energy smell burn off that they get. It smells like energy's burned off somewhere, and there's no power lines around them.
Yeah.
You know, when enough people see this, like if it were one or two people, Kenny, you might be able to go, well, you know, he heard it from this guy and he's kind of running with it. But when people are lining up and there's so many describing the same exact thing in vivid detail, that's when you get to step back and go, okay, there's something supernatural about this part. So now we get to looking at this and examining it under a different magnifying glass, you know, different telescope. So
or there's the sound of a baby crying, or people have been in the woods. I haven't heard this one yet, but I'm figuring it's going to happen in the woods in the middle of the night, and you can hear kids playing in the woods.
I've had that happen, and I can tell you, when you hear the kids playing in the woods and it's pitch black, that is terrifying. Straight up, especially when you hear the running footsteps towards you, you're just like, yeah, I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. And look at all the things you both just added on top of that to kind of gear that there is definitely something potentially supernatural or paranormal going on here. I think of Halo almost to an extent, again, nerd life, where you are trying to manifest, but you can't fully manifest for that long, meaning that could explain why, like you said, the tracks just vanish. Were they able to just get enough of that oomph to step here, or maybe did they have an issue in traveling because they ended up popping up somewhere they didn't want to? This is way out of my realm of understanding. I am not a quantum physicist, yet this guy was talking about in Alaska how there's certain energy that goes across with all these other mineral setups, and how the magnetic poles, I don't know, he's got all these fancy letters in front of his name, and he doesn't seem crazy. I don't know these words and things he's necessarily speaking about, but more or less what I gather is he's saying that it's basically in certain spots in the world, but specifically Alaska, it's kind of like a time travel highway, meaning per se, as you had just both mentioned, maybe Sasquatch and Dogman are just accidentally or stopping here more or less on their time through, which is why we can't get great evidence. I don't know, pretty bizarre stuff, but what he was saying in theory, I mean, it makes sense with all the magnetic pulls and such. Bizarre though.
It could even be something like a phantomal. And what I mean by that is an animal that existed at one time, and their energy, their spirits are still here. And that's what people are seeing. It could be solidifying, you know, becoming 3D or whatever for that short time, and then poof, you know, it's gone because the energy wore out. Yeah, that's what thought forms do.
Yeah, there are two great books that I recommend to everybody, and Kenny, I'm going to recommend them to you. They're Where the Footprints End, Volume 1 and Volume 2. They will help you to try and understand how weird all this stuff is, and they break down a whole lot of that weird stuff to where it makes a little bit more sense.
Yep. Or talk to William Nighthawk, because he has such a broad and vast understanding of this stuff that he'll explain it in ways that you can understand. William Nighthawk is perfect for that.
Yeah, he is.
I just sent him a message to see if he'd like to help us out with some certain aspects. So kudos right there. Nice little shout out. Well, as we are starting to tie this up, I would like to ask a few more questions real quick. How do you both feel about this now? Meaning, I am never just one-sided. I try to, like I said, gather just data. Yet, do you feel there is a better chance this Dogman creature would be, and we're not saying werewolves or skinwalkers, we're saying dog. Okay? Yes.
Yeah.
Being extraterrestrial or paranormal based? And when I mean extraterrestrial, doesn't mean it has to come from outer space. People don't realize that something could come from, per se, inner Earth, I guess, and be considered extraterrestrial, or even the ocean. So,
yeah, you're not wrong about that. You're not wrong about that at all. But, you know, I do think that we're seeing a number of things going on here. I think that people are seeing the flesh and blood versions, you know, and that's why they smell really bad, or they can smell the breath, or they leave fur behind. But I also think that there's a thought form kind of thing going on here, because people are so obsessed with Bigfoot, Dogman, especially the Dogman. You know, when you think about things constantly, you're manifesting that. That's why people will tell you, careful what you think of. If it's something negative, you could manifest that into your life. So with these people that are so obsessed with it, I think they're starting to manifest thought form versions of Dogman. That's why they disappear. That's why they cloak. That's why they don't leave any footprints or any fur. But that's just my 2 cents on it.
I think we have to be careful that we don't lump every sighting, every eyewitness account into one volume. It's kind of like the 411 thing, where all these missing people got lumped into one volume or 7 volumes of books. And well, if you look at all of this together, there's this huge mysterious thing going on. Well, if you look at one case individually, on each one of those, they start to make sense. Most of them. Some of them, not so much. But most of them, there's an answer to. There's a reasonable answer to. So if we have, a case tomorrow where there's an eyewitness account of a Dogman, that needs to be investigated independently of every other Dogman encounter that has, this case happened. Yes. And what we got to do is we've got to get the evidence, the information, and then we'll look at the next one individually, the next one individually, the next one individually. And that's where we start to see behaviors and things. But we have to be careful what we do with this stuff. We're so geared toward answering the question that we're asking the wrong questions.
Right.
Isn't that the straight up facts right there? And my next question before we do start to tie this up is, do you think there is any sort of clout to some people thinking, as you had just mentioned, because I do know in actual factual talks that you can sway people's thoughts, meaning, that's how marketing works, and that's how everyone all of a sudden pops up with an iPhone, right? Or whatever, because those type of things are tactics that work. Well, back to what I wanted to ask. Now, a lot of people will say, the Slender Man, there is nothing in historical aspects to ever support the Slender Man or even black-eyed children, yet people were talking about it so much that all of a sudden they started popping up, right? Meaning, did these people with the power of thought, meaning energy and things, you're putting energy into that, did they cause the Slender Man and black-eyed children to all of a sudden start appearing? Or was it one of those things where there was a psychiatrist that did a test, more or less, he made up that people were seeing this strange figure that would visit them in their dreams because he was doing a test. Yet all of a sudden, all these other patients and then all these other people started coming in saying they were having this dream with this person that was a basically shadow figure, but that was made up. But he was trying to show you how things can be implemented, and basically just cause and come to life to an extent with word of mouth, etc. So did these people maybe manifest the Dogman, some of these, with the thought of it, like you said, being so obsessed with Hollywood werewolves and putting so much thought and effort into this topic? Has that maybe happened, like I said, with the Slender Man and black-eyed children?
Ooh, I think that's a double-fold question there, Kenny. I think the answer to that could be slicing 2 ways here. I think some people, they do it because they know it'll get them 15 minutes of fame. I see this a lot with my Yinararushi research, okay? If there's anything that's hoaxed too much, it's the skinwalkers, all right? Go to TikTok, Instagram, you'll see 1,000 hoaxes. And people know if you mention skinwalkers, Slender Man, black-eyed kids, you're going to get views, you're going to get clicks, you're going to get people running to your video. But I think in some very, very rare cases, if the person has that pure energy and they have good intention, that sometimes it does manifest something. Now, am I saying the Slender Man showed up? Absolutely not. Okay, because that's a creepypasta. I don't think that ever popped up on anybody's doorstep. So if somebody said they saw the Slender Man, I'm like, no, you didn't. But I think a lot of them are hoaxes, though. I think a lot of people do this because, it does get you known, Kenny. It really does. There's people that have made up really big Dogman stories, and look how popular they got. And they blew up. They're on all these podcasts, they're on TV shows. Did that really happen to them? Probably not. So that's my honest take on that.
I'm with Ryan on that. And there's a lot that we don't understand whenever we talk about the paranormal, the other, whatever you want to call it. There is a possibility that there is something else out there. We have to kind of keep our minds open carefully. And maybe there's something else out there that feeds on what we fear. And whenever we make it known what we fear, it takes that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing that out there. I know that doesn't sound very scientific from the science guy and everything, but I'm also a very spiritual guy too. I'm the guy that walks out in the woods and tells the woods why I'm there. So
As you should.
As I believe I should. Because I believe in being respectful to the spirits.
Right.
So there's a whole lot of I don't know in the answer to a very simple question that you have. It's a very intelligent question that you have. I don't have a very intelligent answer for it. There's a whole lot of we don't know yet. And I think that's the part that I like, is that we don't know yet, because that gives us something to look for. Will we ever get the answer? I really hope so. I really hope we do get the answer. I know there's a lot of people who don't want us to get the answer. They're like, I don't care if they ever find Bigfoot. I don't care if they ever find Dogman. I want to find them.
I'm on the fence about that. I'm on the fence.
I want the answers. I want the answers. I want to know the answers. I'm not on the fence. I know where I am.
But would you be just as passionate about it though? Say someone found a Bigfoot body and we saw the Bigfoot mystery, right? Would you still have the same passion towards answering the other mysteries like Dogman and Chupacabra and things like that? Or would you just kind of be like, oh, well, Bigfoot exists, so I'm pretty sure these do?
No, I'd still want to know. Matter of fact, I'd still want to know more about Bigfoot.
Okay.
And then that doesn't answer the questions about the orbs. It doesn't answer the questions about the flashes of light and the other strange things that happen along with Bigfoot. So then we have to investigate into that part. Is that part real? Is that part hoaxed? You know what I mean? It's the question is actually deeper than just that one entity. There's like a whole world that's unfolding that we don't understand.
It's a genuine passion. I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand about folks like you and I, Robert, is we're not doing it for a hobby. Okay. It's something that we are very, very passionate about, and it consumes a lot of our time in our lives. It really does. We toil over research. We're, talking to eyewitnesses. We're looking stuff up. We're going to certain places. It's not just a hobby, but, I think really we're getting closer and closer to finding some answers here. We're going to start asking those right questions, and we're going to find the right paths to take. And I think we're going to see a lot of different changes coming very soon. I really do.
I do too. And I think it's going to be from people like us who are, and if it's not us, who are actually out in the field, doing the work, working on the folklore, working on, traipsing through the woods, whatever it is, and finally asking the right questions. Because I almost feel like the world is going, when you ask the right question, I'll answer it.
Yes, absolutely. I agree 100%. 100%. I think I'm an anomaly, though, because people think I want to prove that, my specialties, the Wendigo and the Yinarudusha, exist. No, I don't. I don't want to prove that they exist because history already proves that there's something to them. I just want to educate people. That's my passion, is educating people on things.
Which reminds me, Sunday, you and I have got a awesome show that we're going to be doing, which is the Wachuga. Wachuga. Yeah.
The Wachuga, interesting. Kenny, you're going to want to listen to that, man. People are going to be like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Excellent.
That one, I think, is going to tie together a lot of the misconceptions about not only the Wendigo, but also the Skinwalker.
Yes.
I think it's going to kind of bring all of that together. So, yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Oh, it's going to be a blast. I am stoked for it, Robert. I got it written right on my desk calendar. I'm like, yes, can't wait for this.
Yep.
Excellent right there. Well, as we do tie this up here, my friends, is there anything else you would like to touch base on tonight before we let both of you brilliant minds get back to other things you need to attend to?
Well, I mean, I think you kind of proved that you're the smart one out of the three of us with your intelligent questions.
Yeah, really. Yeah. I do want to say I just had a video released today with Amber Vance, TikTok famous lady. She's the one who's always, you want to hear a story. So it was a really cool conversation that I had with her. She is working really hard on trying to uncover some stuff that's going on, and I think she is going down a rabbit hole that might be pretty scary. We talk about monsters, but we're talking about human monsters, and this involves missing women. It was a really interesting conversation that her and I had, and I'd love it if you guys, whoever's listening, check out that episode, check out her channel, because she's really putting in the work on it.
I can give that episode 2 thumbs up. I listened to it earlier today, Robert. That was a great episode. And kudos for mentioning the missing Indigenous women, by the way.
Oh, not a problem, not a problem. And we've got some other stuff lining up that we're going to start doing. And we're going to mention the Indigenous women at the beginning of it. That is another project that we have starting up really quick. We've got Monstrous the podcast, and then we've got the Cryptid Field Guide. So the third thing that we're getting ready to start up is Monstrous Mysteries, which is going to cover things like Mel's Hole, the Amityville hauntings, stuff like that. So we're going to go through all of that fun stuff. So at the beginning of that, I'd like to do the Indigenous women, because I don't think they get any publicity as far as, and that's got to get out there.
I agree. I back you 100% on that. 100%.
Well, I know you do. And we don't do that for the channel to be popular. We do that because it's a responsibility that I feel like we have to reach out there. If people are going to watch what we're doing and listen to what we're doing, we need to take the opportunity to try and get that out there. And, if I can put that woman's face, that man's face, anybody in their head and that story, and get them to think about that, and maybe that person will be the one who will see that woman and help us bring them home.
There you go. I think that's really important. We all have to work together in that aspect. We really do.
Exactly.
But hopefully you boys will be free Wednesday and Thursday, because on Wednesday, the 16th, I'll be going on Curiosities. I'll be talking about the Raven Mocker and Skinwalkers and Wendigo, of course. And then, of course, I'll be on Eye of Jupiter, where we talked about the Wendigo and my Dogman encounter.
I will definitely be free Wednesday. Thursday, I will be free. I'll be off this Thursday night, so I will definitely tune in for that.
You better. I'm going to take down your name if I don't see you. I'm like,
Well, if it's going to be you and Tom together, I'm going to have to definitely watch it, because both of you are definitely brothers of mine, just like Kenny is. So yeah, I got to keep up with you guys.
Awesome.
Appreciate you both. Yeah, just definitely send me a good old reminder, because I try to keep my mind nice and flowing properly. So I don't really like to write down too many things, but that's probably why sometimes I forget things. Yeah, if you
you're at that age. See, I'm at the age where I can make a list of groceries that I need, go to the store, and I'll forget everything on the list.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, funny.
That wait till you get to my age, where you're going to go somewhere else and you end up at the grocery store.
No.
So
yeah, and you're like, why am I here?
Oh no.
But Kenny, as far as you feeling like you're lost and you're a little confused and everything, dude, you're right where we've been 100 times, and get used to it, because you're going to get there again. As about the time you think you've got it figured out, you're going to get confused again. But that's part of the fun of this, is trying to solve this puzzle that seems like it's moving. It feels like you're putting together a jigsaw puzzle that the shapes are changing
all the time.
Yeah.
They're upside down too.
Thanks for hanging out tonight, guys. I appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Absolutely.
Ooh, you legends, you, I do adore every single one of you. And thank you for hanging out tonight. Please like, comment, subscribe, share the truth to the algorithm. And remember, there are things that go bump in the night that are much worse than anything you can imagine.